How many of you are pretty well read on the abduction scenario? So I don't need to do a whole lot of background work. All right, great. Well, first you might want to know who I am and why I'm up here to begin with, but the reason I'm up here is because aliens decided that they wanted to mess with my family. And they chose a family that was very happy and active and productive. In 1987, in December, my husband had a sighting in the daytime of a large spherical metallic craft hanging over the courthouse in the town where we lived in the North Texas area. He couldn't identify what it was as he was driving the car, so when he came home, he parked the car and walked about half a block up a hill to where we had a view of downtown, which was less than about a mile away. And this object was hanging over the courthouse in the daytime. He watched it, he said, and I wasn't here, I was out delivering Christmas presents because it was right before Christmas. He watched it for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, no more than that. It never moved, it never changed. He couldn't see wind affect it. He couldn't see anything dangling from it like a balloon might have. And he said he finally gave up and turned around to walk home, and lo and behold, it was dark. He didn't understand how it got so dark in the 5 or 10 minutes he was standing there, but he shrugged it off and came home. And when I returned that night, he said, I saw the darndest thing over the courthouse. I wondered what it was. And he told me his description of it. Large, metallic, spheroid, unmoving object. And we said, oh, well, they must be filming a movie in town, because our town is one where movies have been filmed fairly frequently. Let's look in the newspapers and see what movie they're filming so we can go down and watch them work. That's a fun thing to do. So we looked in the paper that weekend, and there was no mention of a movie, nor was there a mention of this large metallic object over the courthouse, and we forgot about it. Not once in our conversations did the term UFO ever come up. We didn't even think of it. It wasn't part of anything we dealt with. We were not prone to this subject. We had not read on this subject. I was a college instructor of English, had been for 10 years. My husband was a computer systems analyst. My son was a graduate student in physics. We were doing a very normal set of activities in our lives, and UFOs were simply not part of that. But when, several months later, stress had taken its toll, unknown caused stress, in both of our lives to the extent that we were driven to seek counseling and physical help for some of these symptoms, hypnosis was used with me to help teach me how to relax the symptoms of stress I was having. And when my husband's counselor finally dismissed him and said, I'm sorry, I can't find the cause of your stress, I offered to show him how to do self-hypnosis so he could relax the symptoms he was having, which included blinding headache, back pain, paralysis and numbness in one leg from the hip all the way down to the foot, partial blindness, nausea, etc. I was having TMJ symptoms that I had never had. My teeth and jaws were clenching so tight I was deforming the muscles in my face and neck. Again, for no known reason. I was at this point where they were considering surgery to correct this. And we didn't know why we were stressed out. The first night that I taught my husband how to do self-hypnosis so he could relax his symptoms was May 2nd, 1988. When he was sufficiently into a trance, and by the way, he went into it fairly easily, and I'd never done hypnosis on anyone. I'd only had it done on me a couple of times, but it was an easy process to get into a trance state. I played therapist, and I said, why don't you ask your subconscious to tell you what the cause of your stress is? And he said, okay, and mentally asked his subconscious to show him the cause of his stress. My husband was lying on the couch at this time, prone, and all of a sudden, he let out this yelp and literally levitated off the couch in fright. You've heard of jumping in fright? He jumped from a lying position. He said, I see a face. Oh my God, I see a face. And then he saw a gigantic craft. He said the size of a small city. Just then the telephone rang. Now here's my husband under hypnosis for the first time with someone who's only been in hypnosis a couple of times herself, suddenly talking about this weird, scary face and this gigantic ship, and my phone rings. Now what do? I said, hold on, and I ran to pick up the phone, which was no farther than from here to the wall. I picked up the phone and said hello, and there was no answer. I said hello, and there was no answer, and just as I was about to hang up, I started getting screeched at, jabbered at, electronically garbled at by something that sounded very, very angry. This went on for 10 to 15, maybe 20 seconds. I was in stunned response, and then it suddenly went dead and the line was gone. I didn't have time to deal with this. I had a husband on the couch freaking out under hypnosis. So I simply hung up the phone and went back to see if I could bring him out of this trance, because we didn't know what was going on. This was the beginning of an odyssey that led me far, far away from the academic community. We did not know what to do. We were followed by unmarked cars. We had lived in the same house for 5 years with never a helicopter over our house, and beginning at this time we had almost daily helicopter strafing, sometimes in the middle of the night so loud the windows almost broke from the activity, sometimes as many as 9 in a day, circling and circling our house. We began to have interference on our telephone calls, and never when we were talking about recipes or the family or work, but only when UFOs were the subject of conversations. We began to have tampering with our mail, and my daughter-in-law, future daughter-in-law at that time, who was an ROTC scholarship student and was in the process of getting out of the ROTC because of medical reasons, was at a point where she had to sign up a duty request when she graduated, and she was a physicist, studying physics at the time. And she needed to be near her medical specialist for her problem, which would give her only one choice of an assignment, which was meteorology. When she went to the ROTC sergeant on the campus and signed that she wanted to be attached to a meteorological base, the sergeant absolutely flipped out and said, "You can't do this. You're a physicist. Don't you want to sign up for the R&D work? Don't you want to work on the UFOs and find out what really is going on with them and not what the public thinks?" This from a sergeant in the Air Force to my daughter-in-law, who had never mentioned any of our activity to anyone other than us, except on the phone.